This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and I wanted to thank all of the first responders and condolences to anyone who lost loved ones in 9/11. God bless America.
I had one.
By the airplanes, by architectural defect, or possibly by bombs or aftershocks. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation, and it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid, and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down.
Do you remember when Donald Rumsfeld acknowledged on September 10, 2001, that the Pentagon had lost $2.3 trillion?
To shift Pentagon's resources from bureaucracy to the battlefield, from tail to the tooth. We know the adversary, we know the threat, and with the same firmness of purpose that any effort against a determined adversary demands, we must get at it and stay at it. Some might ask, how in the world could the Secretary of Defense attack the Pentagon in front of its people? To them I reply, I have no desire to attack the Pentagon. I want to liberate it. We need to save it from itself. The men and women of this department, civilians and militaries, are our allies, not our enemies. They too are fed up with bureaucracy. They too live with frustrations. I hear it every day. And I'll bet $1 to a dime that they too want to fix it. In fact, of this adversary. The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy, not the people, but the processes. Not the civilians, but the systems. Not the men and women in uniform, but the uniformity of thought and action that we too often impose on them. In this building, despite the era of scarce resources, taxed by mounting threats, money disappears into duplicative duties, bloated bureaucracy, not because of greed, but gridlock. Innovation is stifled not by ill intent, but by institutional inertia. Just as we must transform America's military capability to meet changing threats, we must transform the way the department works. We are, as they say, tangled in our anchor chain. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Yeah, okay. Where's the real footage of the dancing Israelis?
And when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey, she noticed three men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells. The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day? The men said they were just taking pictures at the time. They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices.
2 SUVs were filled up with between 9 and 12 boxes and computers.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind. In jail, the 5 Israelis were repeatedly interrogated and given lie detector tests. Stephen Gordon was their American lawyer.
They were asked questions if they had ever been approached by or hired by any non-United States intelligence community.
While there is still some debate among American intelligence officials, many investigators believe some of the men were part of an Israeli operation aimed at monitoring radical Islamic charities that support groups like Hamas, something lawyers for the 5 men and the Israeli government strongly deny.
These 5 Israelis were not involved in any intelligence operation in the United States. The story is simply false.
In the end, the FBI concluded there was no evidence that any of the 5 men had advance knowledge of the September 11th plot. After 71 days, the 5 Israelis were deported, leaving some ruffled feathers among both U.S. and Israeli officials. According to federal officials, the 5 men have been barred from returning to the United States for 10 years, they say because they violated immigration laws.
Bottom line, John, is there any evidence any of these 5 men knew about the September 11th attacks before they occurred?
The FBI spent a great deal of time examining this question. It does not appear that they were in place taking pictures before the planes hit, but shortly thereafter. And they say they haven't uncovered evidence that any of these 5 men, and they did their backgrounds, they searched apartments, they telephone records and so on, had any advanced knowledge of the attack.
And while the FBI or certain sources might believe that in fact they were Israeli intelligence, they don't believe that the U.S. was a target, that they were actually investigating Muslim groups?
They believe if this was an intelligence operation by Israel, that it was focused on the Islamic groups and charities that raise money for groups that are considered by U.S. law enforcement and others terrorist groups. And you'll note that after September 11th, the U.S. moved on many of these groups with indictments, arrests, raids on their headquarters, something that hadn't happened prior to this.
These are groups that Israel believes have been funding Hamas and other terrorist organizations?
Groups that are responsible for most of the suicide bombings there.
All right, John Miller will have a full report. You can see it.
Intelligence ring was inside the U.S., had prior knowledge of 9/11, and had a classified role in 9/11, which officials refused to discuss. It was also able to penetrate U.S. intelligence agencies and secret offices, yet all were released. The men who were detained due to the report they were taping the first plane crash and then celebrating and joking about it actually went on television and admitted it was their job to record the attack.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
How could they have known about the attack? And who sent them to document it? The evidence points to a large intelligence network inside the United States that had teams on the ground, such as the ones recording the attack, and electronic surveillance teams gathering information. Another team who was involved that day detonated explosives on the ground.
We have both suspects under K. We have the suspect who drove in the van exploded. Yeah, I just want to make sure you and your guys are all right over there, K, that's all. We have both Trans driven that exploded. What location? King Street between 6 and 7.
Shooting is on the scene on King 6 or 7. What unit are you?
How would these teams obtain their information?
The investigation on our side basically tracked back to two companies. The first one was called Amdocs. This is an Israeli-owned company which does the billing for 90% of the telephone companies inside the United States.
Fox News has learned that some American terrorism investigators fear certain suspects in the September 11th attacks may have managed to stay ahead of them by knowing who and when investigators are calling on the telephone. How? By obtaining and analyzing data that's generated every time someone in the U.S. makes a phone call.
One sitting in city, please.
Here's how the system works. Most directory assistance calls and virtually all call records and billing in the U.S. are done for the phone companies by Amdocs Limited, an Israeli-based private telecommunications company. Amdocs has contracts with the 25 biggest phone companies in America and more worldwide. It is virtually impossible to make a call on normal phones without generating an Amdocs record of it. In recent years, the FBI and other government agencies have investigated Amdocs more than once. Sources tell Fox News that in 1999, the super-secret National Security Agency, headquartered in northern Maryland, issued what's called a top-secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information report, TSSCI, warning that records of calls in the United States were getting into foreign hands, in Israel in particular.
I declare the end from the beginning, and from the ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and all my good pleasure I will accomplish. So the Creator is letting you know that He declares the end from the beginning. Okay? Here's another quote I want to share with you. Address. Okay? The statement, Esau is the end of the world, comes from Address 6:9. It refers to the end of the first stage of this age or dispensation, not the literal end of the world. The text uses Esau and Jacob as symbols of the Old Testament, the Old and New eras, with Esau representing the conclusion of the previous time and Jacob the beginning of the following one. Okay? So Esau is the end of the world. I declare the end from the beginning. The beginning from the end. You saw the quotes. So, what was the beginning of where we are today? If you want to find out and figure out how we got to this point where we are today, and find out what the beginning of it was, we look no further than September the 11th, 2001. We call that day 9/11. September the 11th, 2001. I believe it happened on a Tuesday. Carry out going to check the calendar to see if that's the actual date. So, that's the beginning of the world going crazy, but especially you Americanas, you American people, you folks who live in North America. I don't mean Mexico and Colombia and all those places, Venezuela. I mean America. When the world says America, you know what they mean. They're not talking about Canada. They're talking about America. You dig? So, after 9/11, the system created something called the Department of Homeland Security. And at this time, that's when your rights started getting stripped, when they were able to start performing all this surveillance and making you have all these different things, documentation, blah, 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 all these things. That is the beginning. Now, I'm going to show you that it was the beginning. And I'm going to show it to you. That's the Christ. But this picture is showing times. It's showing you different times and different stages, and all the way up until the last judgment. It's still loading, but while we're loading, I'll point a couple things out for you. Okay. The geometric value for time is 144. That is 144,000 chosen. You dig? Now, I'm going to go to the last judgment, and let you see the time because it shows you. This is the clock you're looking at. And if you look at the clock, you see that this hour hand is pointing at the 9, and you see that the minute hand is under the 11, hence 9/11, the beginning. So if you have a military clock, you also know that the 11 represents 23, the end. The end is 9/23 this year. Judgment date is 9/23 this year. September the 11th, 2001 to September 23rd, 2025 is 8,778 days. That is what's known as a palindrome. A palindrome is a word or set of numbers that read the same if you read it forwards to backwards and backwards to forward. 8,778 days. Okay? So 9/23 is the date. Now, is there any proof? What's that show? That doesn't show anything. That's just some guy who's just trying to put things together. So since my words aren't trustworthy enough because our media does such a fantastic job of letting me know that anything that comes out of this vessel that God made is to be dismissed and made as to be a fool or a liar. Even though God made it, people get to do that. Now, since my words don't mean enough, let's go and use your science. Let's use all of your numbers and your systems. Now, let's put 8778 in the geometry calendar, and let's see what it has to show. Americans have been deceived for their entire lives. The Oval Office is a Judeo-British scripted clown carnival. Drama, atomic, and the nuclear bombs are fictional. They're telling you that this is a bunch of lies. Let me read it again. Americans have been deceived for their entire lives. The Oval Office is a Judeo-British scripted clown carnival. Drama, atomic, and nuclear bombs are fiction. Now, if you're trying to figure out whether or not it's true that nuclear bombs are fiction, they're murdering Palestinians right now in Israel with bombs. They've been doing it for more than a year. If they wanted to kill everybody, then why would we drop a nuclear bomb? You know what? I'll let you answer that question. If you look at another number in geometry, they give you a whole bunch of different explanations that don't relate. But this one, everything I'm going to show you relates. And when you just go, a career officer in the U.S. military may have at one time, long ago, been an honorable achievement. But now with all of their nuclear and 9/11 lives, ooh, did I mention 9/11 earlier today? Now with all of their nuclear and 9/11 lives coming to light. Do you understand 9/11 lives? Oh, wow, I mentioned that once or twice, but I got something to show you on that as well a little bit later to this presentation.
For those that do not know, the World Trade Center held a substantial amount of silver and gold, largely owned by the Bank of Nova Scotia. Apparently, as of September 22nd, 2001, they were unable to retrieve the gold. And over an amount of time, just literally little than a month later, I found another article stating that they were actually able to retrieve the gold and silver. It was completely undamaged and was sent to a safe location. Isn't that interesting? The other private agencies or entities that own this gold and silver were unnamed, of course, but I just found it very interesting that no one has made much mention about this gold and silver that is just put away in a safe location after so many rumors were scurrying around about where it was.
I had the pleasure of working pretty much with every Prime Minister of Israel.
This guy here, his name is Larry Silverstein. Only 2 months before 9/11, the World Trade Center was privatized and sold to Larry Silverstein. Every single morning, he ate breakfast in the North Tower on the 91st floor, except for the day of 9/11.
Forward. I said to myself, wouldn't it be fantastic if I could own the Twin Towers? We got very, very lucky. The governor of New York, George Pataki, decided one day that maybe it would be good to privatize the ownership of the World Trade Center. So I got a call from the governor's office. And they said, would you ever consider owning the World Trade Center? It was very, very good for the family, very good for us. And we were very, very fortunate. On the morning of 9/11, I'm getting ready, getting dressed to go to the dermatologist. I have light-colored hair, light skin. The sun is a disaster for me. I can't take the sun. She said, okay, but you're going to the dermatologist, you're going this morning, and you're not going downtown. We got very, very lucky. And I had an obligation to collect the insurance proceeds from the policies. A new governor was just elected. Elliot Spitzer, an old friend who I knew well. And I said, Elliot, if you don't help me, I'll never collect from the insurance companies. And guess what? He listened and he said, you know what? You're entitled. I'm gonna get you the money. And in 6 months, he got me the $4.5 billion. We got very, very lucky.
Wait up. Can you dig it? Keep black POW flags daily at government offices cultivates and supports a permanent war culture mentality in society. You understand? So you wonder why they flying these flags of POW? Because it cultivates and supports a permanent war culture. We've been at war for 93% of the time that we've been known as America.
Should have seen it coming a mile away. This was never about revenge. It's about a goddamn heist.
What was in the room?
This.
What is this? Oh shit, is this gold?
Yeah, it's gold.
Damn, this is heavy. They cleaned out a whole room of this?
Yeah.
You know, that would have taken like a tank or
a dump truck.
You muster out in half an hour in the school bus. You'll be the lacrosse team.
Der Jet ist in Nova Scotia in 20
Hey, remember the Bank of Nova Scotia owned that silver and gold.
Minuten können wir.
If I hadn't saved your fucking ass, I wouldn't be sitting here with you about to blow up with $100 billion in fucking gold.
Yeah, well, I got some bad news. You're only gonna blow up with me.
What?
There's no gold on this boat.
How do you know that?
I know the man. I know the family. The only thing better than blowing up $100 billion worth of gold is making people think you did.
Yeah, well, where is he?
I don't know. He must have switched it back on the dock somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to make me feel better?
No.
I'm gonna miss you, Major. You aren't ready to stay dead. You don't know the rules of the game anymore.
Tell me about it. 8 years ago, this guy was on the hit list.
Budget cuts, dear. Congress blinded us overseas. I was forced to turn to any eyes and ears I could find, even if that meant recruiting the quote-unquote bad guys here.
Budget cuts. Is that what this is about? Operation Honeymoon. Fuck me. You're running a fundraiser.
Fundraiser? 1993. World Trade Center bombing, remember? During the trial, one of the bombers claimed the CIA had advanced knowledge. The diplomat who issued the terrorist visa was CIA. It's not unthinkable they paved the way for the bombing purely to justify a budget increase.
You're telling me that you're gonna fake some terrorist thing just to scare some money out of Congress?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Hennessy, I've no idea how to fake killing 4,000 people. So we're just gonna have to do it for real. Oh, blame it on the Muslims, naturally. Then I get my funding. Good night, old girl. Timothy, I'll be in Chopper 1.
Remember rapping Duke, the hard, you never thought that hip-hop would take it this far. Now I'm in the limelight cause I rhyme tight. Time to get paid, blow up like the world's trade.
This is the album cover of Jay-Z's Blueprint Volume 1, which coincidentally was also released on September 11th, 2001. It came out a week earlier than it initially had been planned to, and it was recorded right in Manhattan Center, right where the Twin Towers went down. Now, the other thing about Jay-Z is his likeness to Basquiat. Now, Basquiat was an eclectic artist, and me and my husband have done so much research on him, and we have found that he actually was painting about the future. This painting here is called Beat Bop, but it wasn't just a piece of art. It also was a musical record released in 1983. And me and my husband have done extensive videos, and you can go to our YouTube channel if you like on your own time, where we break down the connection and references to 9/11. Here is my YouTube channel, and here are the two videos that we did breaking it completely down. They are very detailed, so I can't go over it right now for this video. And I wanted to go over this painting as well, Bird on Money, also painted by Jean-Michel Basquiat in 1981. And this is another painting where he is yet again referring to 9/11. So he was painting about the future. Unfortunately, we lost Basquiat in 1988. Speaking of 1988, Donnie Darko was set to be staged in the year 1988. And coincidentally, it was released January 19, 2001. Now, if anybody follows me and Santana's work, you know that we look at the number patterns for 13 and 62. And if you add 13 years to 1988, it brings you to 2001. Again, you can go to my YouTube channel and we explain it all. But if you take a look, January 19, 2001 actually is 9/11. This is Donnie Darko's mother reading Stephen King's It in the very beginning of the movie. And if anyone knows anything about It, you will know that that story is a series completely about the experiences of 7 children terrorized by an evil entity that exploits the fear of its victims to disguise itself. And I just wanted to make mention that Thomas Jefferson said, when the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears their people, there is liberty. And we so desperately need that.
Wake up.
Okay, so I want you to pay attention to Donnie's ceiling. He has an American flag and he has a poster underneath. After some digging, I realized that the poster is a picture of Led Zeppelin's cover to Swan Song. And when I looked it up, Swan Song is not on any album. It is a fan favorite during live performances. But when I looked up what Swan Song actually means, it comes from ancient Greek. And they believe that swans sing a beautiful song just before its death. And as you can see, the flag is right above it, showing that it is the death of America. Okay, so this is Donnie coming back home after sleepwalking, and he sees a plane engine being lifted out of his house by a crane, and he sees his family. They don't know where he was last night because he sleepwalks all the time. So again, here we have a plane crash, that correlation with 9/11. Like I keep trying to show you that all of this is some sort of predictive programming within movies, music, artwork before 9/11 even took place. Remember, this was released January 19th, 2001. 911.
And here. You got it. All right. We have arranged for you to stay at a hotel, get some sleep, and we will take care of things here.
Great.
Thank you.
Kids, come on, we're going to hotel.
They don't know where it came from.
That we never again do business with a drug-running Panamanian dictator, that we never again funnel aid to the Contras who convicted drug dealers.
Son of a bitch.
Panama is a friendly country. I went down there and talked to the president of Panama about cleaning up their money laundering. And Mr. Noriega was there, but there was no evidence.
Okay, so I couldn't ignore that George W. Bush's father was on the television in 1988, 13 years before George W. took the seat when 9/11 took place. The music playing is by a group named Tears for Fears because they traumatize us into compliance with fear of more
Donnie
trauma.
Darko?
Hence the name Tears
Perhaps
for
with your
Fears.
recent brush with mass destruction, you can give.
Did she just mention mass destruction? Like weapons of mass destruction?
Well, they say it right when they flood the house and they tear it to shreds, that destruction is a form of creation, so the fact that they burn the money is ironic. They just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart. They want to change things.
Fear.
As you can see, the lifeline is divided into two polar extremes, fear and love. Fear is in the negative energy spectrum, and love is in the positive energy spectrum.
Theoretically, a wormhole in space controlled by man. So, according to Hawking, a wormhole may be able to provide a shortcut for jumping between two distant regions of space-time.
So in order to travel back in time, you have to have a big spaceship or something that can travel faster than the speed of light.
Theoretically.
And be able to find one of these wormholes.
The basic principles of time travel are there. You've got your vessel and your portal, and your vessel can be just about anything, most likely a spacecraft.
Like a DeLorean.
Metalcraft of any kind.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like futuristic, you know?
Listen, don't tell anybody that I gave you this. The woman who wrote this used to teach here. She was a nun many years before that, but and then overnight she just she became this entirely different person. She up and left the church. She wrote this book. She started teaching science right here at Middlesex.
Philosophy of time travel. Roberta Sparrow?
That's right.
Come on. Roberta Sparrow.
Here's Donnie waiting on the bus stop, and you'll hear it in a second. Yeah. Sounds like a plane going down. They keep making all these plane references. And there you have another plane in the sky. Seems very coincidental.
So what do I tell the other kids when they ask about you?
Tell them that everything is gonna be just fine.
Let's sell her door.
This famous linguist once said that of all the phrases in the English language, of all the endless combinations of words in all of history that cellar door is the most beautiful.
Check out all the focus on the American flag all the way until she gets out of the door.
Symbols of time travel are there. You've got your vessel and your portal, and your vessel can be just about anything, most likely a spacecraft. Metalcraft of any kind.
And what if you could go back in time and take all those hours of pain and darkness and replace them with something better?
C.S. Lewis said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." And that is such a true statement. We know that something is coming. We can feel it. We can smell it. We can taste it. Our air is poisoned. The water is poisoned. Our schools are poisoned. And you saw that 923 is the end. I'm asking everybody to open their eyes, open their hearts, open their minds, pray to whatever it is that you believe in, fast, talk to each other again, communicate with each other, say I love you, let's be one. I know that we are not all the same, but we're all here. So let's make the most of it. Thank you so much for watching this. Please share it. And I hope to see you all on the end of this thing. Can you dig it?